The Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have been supporting Hamas, Hezbollah and Iran since the October 7th attack in Gaza by launching missile attacks on Israel. These missile attacks garnered regional attention, but since October 7th, the Houthis have launched an anti-ship campaign in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden that is much more effective and dangerous. Although the attacks have only resulted in the sinking of 2 ships, they have caused significant disruption to international shipping, as many ships have diverted from the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, opting instead to take a longer route to the Cape of Good Hope and around southern Africa. The ongoing attacks have disrupted 12% of all international shipping that passes through the Red Sea. The Houthi rebel attacks also pose a threat to the oil movement out of the Persian Gulf, which has 20% of the world's oil passing through it. These 2 facts prompted the United States Navy to deploy warships, both to protect commercial ships from attacks and to target the Houthi locations responsible for the attacks. The U.S. Navy's traditional role is to suppress piracy, protect international shipping trade by maintaining open shipping lanes. The attacks by the U.S. and other international partners on the Houthi rebels have yielded mixed results, but the Navy's actions have also made their ships a target for the Houthi attacks. During the spring and summer of 2024, the U.S.S. Eisenhower, along with its carrier strike group consisting of up to 2 cruisers and 3 destroyers, operated in the area to suppress the Houthi activities. The Eisenhower strike group reported firing 155 surface-to-air missiles and 60 air-to-air missiles to defend itself against Houthi attacks. The Eisenhower strike group also launched 555 air-to-surface or cruise missiles against the Houthis. This incident marked the highest number of attacks against a U.S. aircraft carrier since World War II, underscoring the threat that missiles pose to aircraft carriers and the critical role of air defense systems against missile attack. The attacks were so numerous that the Houthi, most likely in a crude use of strategic communications, reported that the U.S.S. Eisenhower was struck, severely damaged, and most likely sunk. The Houthis likely sent this message to their supporters to boost their morale and place the US at a disadvantage in the region's messaging war. The Eisenhower was not hit, damaged, or sunk, but by the time the US DoD responded, the rumor had taken hold, and the ending of the carrier's deployment and exiting from the theater was reported as the US carrier was damaged and had to sail away from the war zone for repairs. This rumor followed Eisenhower on social media all the way to Crete in late June, and it was clear there was no damage to the Eisenhower. It was reported this week in a West Point publication that, though it was not hit, a Houthi missile came in low over the horizon toward the Eisenhower, which did not detect it as it got within 200 meters, 219 yards, from the carrier before it crashed into the sea without ever being engaged by the defense systems of the battle group. There are 2 lessons for the DoD in this Red Sea engagement. One lesson is the importance of timely and efficient media messaging to prevent rumors, such as Eisenhower's demise, from spreading and bolstering the morale of the Houthi and their allies. The West and NATO are increasingly concerned about this issue, as strategic communication is becoming a crucial component of public relations and messaging in military operations. The second lesson pertains to the danger that missiles pose. Even a relatively unsophisticated non-state actor such as the Houthis can acquire advanced weapons in sufficient quantities, putting a carrier strike group on the defensive and increasing the risk of missile strikes. While it's true that Iran supports the Houthis, the US Navy should learn from this and avoid unduly risking a carrier in a setting where more numerous and sophisticated Chinese missiles pose a threat, such as the Western Pacific. Sending the U.S.S. Eisenhower into the region in a haphazard attempt to suppress the Houthis was an unnecessary risk, and it was a mistake to use such a high-value asset as a U.S. supercarrier. The Houthis pose a risk to international trade and shipping, and the U.S. Navy must respond to this challenge. It would have been better to commit the carrier as part of an operation to exert overwhelming force and consider deploying an MEU or an ARG along with the Eisenhower against the Houthis, not to occupy Yemen or their strongholds, but to destroy their capability on the ground that air and missile strikes alone have been unable to destroy. The focus should not be on the composition of the ground force, but rather on the necessity of temporarily occupying ground with a ground unit to degrade the Houthis' infrastructure to an extent that would be impossible otherwise. It is crucial for political leaders to consider the consequences of sending a carrier on a mission in a geographically limited area, subjecting it to repeated attacks, without having the political will to escalate the force used to end the threat. The political leadership put the U.S.S. Eisenhower in danger and hoped it wouldn't be hit, when it should have kept it out of harm's way, or sent it to end the threat to the carrier and regional shipping with a more decisive force to end the threat. Consider this incident as an example of how the crew's skill, the weapons, and a bit of luck prevented a successful attack on a U.S. carrier. The insufficient effort resulted in decisions to divert shipping around the Cape of Good Hope and increase the risk to a U.S. carrier without significantly improving the situation in the Red Sea, illustrate how political decisions have resulted in the worst possible outcomes for the world.